Railjack. It's not good, but it can be good, and it can fill a gameplay niche that Warframe has needed filled for a while, and one that I believe DE has tried and failed to fill in the past with the Kuva Lich system. First, I'd like to remind you all of some things that are, I think, common knowledge, but bear relevance regardless. Railjack was originally pitched as a sort of expansion of existing content, a new dimension of gameplay that meshes seamlessly with existing gameplay. DE Steve has said that he wants to avoid making Railjack into a new content island or an isolated piece of content that does not serve to prop up existing gameplay, but instead acts as a distraction from it. Railjack, unfortunately, does not succeed in this regard. It is a completely isolated content island that has no relevance for the majority of Warframe's progression. DE seems to be trying to remedy this by clumsily smashing Railjack and more traditional gameplay structures together with the Scarlet Spear event. Scarlet Spear fails to remedy the problem because the Tenno on the ship and the Tenno playing through a more traditional Warframe mission are completely isolated from one another. Some Railjack mission objectives seem to try to solve this problem as well. Invading Grineer galleons to slay captains is probably the most fun part of the Railjack experience, and it's barely expanded upon at all. There are a few other non-Railjack concepts that also need introduction. Warframe has always suffered from an issue that I think generally goes unnamed, which is that there is no reason to go back and play through the most interesting missions again, but there is every reason to go back and grind the least interesting ones. There's no reason for a veteran player to ever do a capture mission on Mars again, or to go back and hijack a Grineer reactor on Ceres again, but there are a multitude of reasons for veteran players to grind out the same boring fucking defense objective over and over again. The result is twofold. First, it results in gameplay that becomes less complex as the player progresses, and secondly, it results in untold numbers of fun, completed pieces of content sitting completely unused while DE tries frantically to keep a treadmill of new bullshit constantly streaming in. DE has attempted to address this problem with the Kuva Lich system and has succeeded to some degree. I dislike what was done with the Liches conceptually, but the gameplay loop we wound up with is okay. It's not what was promised, or indeed even a Lich by its most basic definition, but that's a complaint for another time. So we've got two major gameplay problems sitting side by side. Railjack is an isolated content island, and hundreds of hours of reusable content are sitting totally unused on our hard drives. There is a solution here, however. All Warframe missions have a substantial amount of gameplay that is glossed over in cutscene. The whole sequence where the player's landing craft swoops in to deploy the Warframe through the vent is just crying out for gameplay expansion, as is the extraction sequence. Expanding these glossed over sections is how Railjack can be made rewarding and integrated into existing content. Duplicate the star chart. Use the current top right game type selector system. Have your normal star chart missions accessible by default and Railjack versions of them accessible by toggling the selector. In addition to the existing Proxima nodes, however, toggling to Railjack mode should also provide access to the same mission nodes as normal gameplay. These Railjack variants of existing mission nodes are expanded upon first by increasing enemy level up to be on par with existing Railjack content, then by deploying the player in their Railjack some distance away from the ship containing a traditional gameplay objective, a capture, a sabotage, what have you. The squad must then fight their way to the ship in Railjack mode, taking down fighter cover and exterior turrets on the ship. One or more players then deploy from the airlock and fly to a weak point on the objective side, which they will then breach and enter. The away team then fulfills a traditional Warframe objective on a traditional Warframe map. The presence of the Grineer Galleon and Grineer Asteroid tile sets indicate that the game can handle generating a traditional map inside the Railjack container, so technical limitations should not be an issue here. This very basic concept should, theoretically, be incredibly easy to implement, as it merely entails containing existing content within the existing Railjack systems. It could then be expanded in a number of creative ways. Maybe blowing out the windows on a Corpus ship forcibly ejects everyone inside that room into the cold vacuum of space, killing enemies instantly and forcing the Tenno to find another way inside. Maybe destroying a ship's reactor could have actual consequences, and players that fail to escape the ship before the core explodes are killed and receive an instant failure. Maybe ships of multiple factions could warp in and could launch ram sleds at one another, creating chaos and slide while the Tenno complete the mission objective. Maybe existing mission objectives could be given a Railjack component as well. Instead of exposing the reactor core and destroying it from the inside, one or more away team members must infiltrate and expose the core to the Railjack outside, not unlike existing point of interest Railjack destruction missions. By using Railjack as a container for existing mission structures, DE can take advantage of existing content and solve the Railjack as a content island problem with minimal work on their part. Railjack could be a great concept. All it needs is a marriage to the core gameplay loop.